Coming up on the Children's Hour, we're going to learn about watersheds and what happens to them after a wildfire. With more and more wildfires blazing in our mountains around the world, watersheds, which provide the water source for people, animals, and agriculture, get contaminated by these fires. There are ways to restore watersheds in our forests, and we're going to learn more from the educational team at the New Mexico Forest and Watershed Restoration Institute. This episode is mixed with great music, and you're going to learn a lot about watersheds. Stick with us. The Children's Hour is produced by the Children's Hour Incorporated. We're a New Mexico nonprofit that's supported by listeners just like you. Learn more about us and find hundreds of podcasts at childrenshour.org.
It's time for the Children's Hour, Kids Public Radio.
What happens when you get water on a table?
I don't know.
What?
It becomes a pool table.
It's time for the Children's Hour, Kids Public Radio.
Have you ever jumped in a puddle just for play? Or waded in a creek on a sunny day? Do you know how to swim? Do you love to splash? Do you like to blow bubbles in your bath? Well, you can't live without it, it goes with bread. If you don't have it, you'd be dead. Water, sweet water. Everybody needs sweet water. Clean water, clean water. Everybody needs clean water. I always pick up some litter when I canoe with my kids on the river. You never know what you'll find, what some people leave behind. I was paddling near a spring when I found the strangest thing. There in the water was a bottle of spring water. Spring water, spring water. Everybody needs spring water. Clean water, clean water. Everybody needs clean water. Well, there's lots of stuff, it flows downstream, but that ain't the stuff you wanna drink. Don't pollute it, don't dilute it, don't add anything unnatural to it. Gotta keep it clean on the river's bend for ourselves and our wild friends. That water, sweet water. Everybody needs sweet water. Clean water, clean water. Everybody needs clean water. Sweet water, sweet water. Everybody needs sweet water. Clean water, clean water. Everybody needs clean water.
That was Clean Water off All Along the Watershed. You're listening to the Children's Hour. I'm Katie Stone. I'm here with a lot of great kids at the Outpost Performance Space and on Zoom. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hi.
And who do we have with us today?
Hello, it's Amadeus.
Hi, it's Daniel.
Hello, this is Cade.
Hi, it's Beth.
Hi, it's Isaac.
Today on the show, you guys, we're going to be talking about watersheds. Do you know what a watershed is?
No, I don't have the slightest clue, actually.
It seems like a place where maybe you'd put like tools that go in your pool or something, but I don't think that's what it is. We're going to be speaking with people who are doing very complicated work in cleaning up watersheds after forest fires. We've got so much coming up. Stick with us. This is the Children's Hour.
Rhythms in the lapping of the waves. The oars lie patiently to take a drink. I tiptoe down the rocks, wearing holes in all my socks. Time stands still, I think. The sun wakes up and reaches through the dark. The moon just shakes its head and waves goodbye. I step into the boat, push off, and there I float. Time stands still, I sigh. Down down to the water. No place here on earth I'd rather be. Down to the water. Time stands still with me. I balance in the middle of the boat. The wood is hard but greets me nonetheless. In my hands I hold each oar, stroking further from the shore. Time stands still, oh yes. Down to the water. No place here on earth I'd rather be. Down to the water. Time stands still with me. No place here on earth I'd rather be. Down to the water. Time stands still with me.
That was Down to the Water by Tim Seston off Who I Am. You're listening to the Children's Hour, and today on the show, we're learning about watersheds. We have a lot to learn. With us is Dr. Krista Bonfantine. She's an ecologist. Hello, welcome to the Children's Hour.
Hi.
And we have Natalia Shaw. She is the Education and Outreach Coordinator for the New Mexico Forest and Watershed Restoration Institute.
Hello, everyone.
Hello. And we have your assistant with us too, Raymundo Melendez. Welcome to the Children's Hour.
Thank you. What exactly is a watershed?
That's a great question. And I think most people might not have a complete understanding of what it is because it's not a shed that holds water. But what it is, it's an area of land that is made up of streams, rivers, creeks, lakes, and that entire area of land, all that water drains to a common outlet. So that could be to a large river, an ocean, or anything similar to that. And everyone lives in a watershed.
No matter where you are on planet Earth.
Yeah, we all live in a watershed. And I just thought I'd add, in other parts of the world, they refer to watersheds as catchments or basins. And sometimes thinking about it as a basin, you can kind of think about it like your sink or your bathtub. And the water in your bathtub and your sink have two different basins, but they end up joining together in the pipe that leaves your house. And so that common outlet that Natalia mentioned, they're all nested together. So there's little tiny watersheds and they all fit together and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger.
When the water gets collected and goes through the watershed, where does it end up going after that?
Watershed consists of water that we find on the surface of the land, so like a lake, a river, but it also consists of the water underground. And both sources of that water is really important source of drinking water. Here in the Southwest, we rely on a lot of groundwater, and so that is a really crucial part of our watersheds.
What exactly does your organization do?
Yeah, so we work across the entire state of New Mexico. We also work with awesome people in Colorado and Arizona. And we work with a lot of communities to engage the larger community and state in protecting our watersheds and protecting the health of our forests. So some of our forests are in a state where they are currently degraded and we need to return them to a state of health. And there's other forests where we need to maintain their health. And so we do a lot of work with people and students just like you all to try to engage people in the work that creates healthy watersheds and healthy forests.
What does some of that work look like?
One of them is monitoring. We travel around the full state and we look at what has happened in previous years. So we start off at a certain year, and then 5 years later we'll check that and we'll redo the same measurements on everything. But they have to have a treatment, okay? So they might have a thinning, they might have a prescribed fire, they might have something that is making this forest less congested. That's the best way I can say it, is because some of these forests, they have many different species. So within these species, some of them are fire adaptive and some of them are not. So when you have these trees, as a manager, you got to actually see which ones can handle it and which ones can't. So when you do your prescription, kind of like when a doctor gives you a pill to say, hey, you have a cold, you're not doing too well. Well, as foresters, and here at the New Mexico Forest and Watershed, we help assist BLM, State Forestry, Forest Service. And when we do monitor, we do it every year. So after 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, we see how this land has changed and if it's doing well. So what we look into is what kind of vegetation is below to the top. And when I'm talking about that, I'm talking about grasses all the way up to big trees. We identify what tree species are there. So that's one thing that we look into is, hey, is this native or not?
Are you looking at like how clean the water is? Do you take water samples and see if the water is clean?
Well, rain trickles down into the river or into water, any water substance. So what's the first thing it hits? It's going to hit trees first. It's going to hit plants first before it hits the soil. So before anything is filtered, it has to go through that. So like, for example, after this fire that we had, the Calf Canyon Hermit's Peak fire, a lot of that soil got disintegrated. It got a lot of ash in it and it's undrinkable water. So with all that water, from rain coming down, it's hitting this soil that is now destroyed, because it takes thousands of years for soil to be made, thousands. And when that little soil is disintegrated, it's like, all right, there's nothing here. So you're going to have a lot of flooding. And you don't have trees, or how should I say it? Like you don't have vegetation.
Plants holding back the floods. Yeah.
You don't have it holding it back because they're like anchors. Think of it as a ship. You have your anchor. It's sturdy. It's safe. But when you have rain come down, it's like it pushes down fairly quickly. So when all this water is going down, it's coming down at a fast motion. So when it goes into your water, it's basically undrinkable, unusable. It'll kill fish. It'll kill us if we drank it, but it's always best not to even try that or drink it.
It's a concern having water be contaminated with the ash from forest fires, and that's why forest health is so important. That's Raymundo Melendez. He's the Assistant Education and Outreach Coordinator for the New Mexico Forest and Watershed Restoration Institute. We've got a lot more questions for our guests. Stick with us. This is the Children's Hour.
I'm just a little drop of water, but I won't stay that way. I'm just a little drop of water. Watch me how I change my shape. As I fall to the ground, I am called the rain. That's precipitation, is hard to sustain. We make a big splash, we become the ocean. That's called a collection, we cause a commotion. I'm just a little drop of water, but I won't stay that way. I'm just a little drop of water. Watch me how I change my shape. The sun shines below, it turns up the heat. We turn into vapor, we turn into steam. We float all around, it's called convection. But high up above, we make a connection. I'm just a little drop of water, but I won't stay that way. I'm just a little drop of water. Watch me how I change my shape. We change one more time as the air gets cold. We turn back to liquid, that's what we were told. Above in the sky, in this condensation, we get all together, we make a cloud nation. different shapes, in different packs. Snow or rain, we got it together. The cycle persists, no matter the weather. I'm just a little drop of water, but I won't stay that way. I'm just a little drop of water. Watch me how I change my shape. I'm just a little drop of water, but I won't stay that way. I'm just a little drop of water. Watch me how I change my shape.
That was Drop of Water by Flor Bromley off Pachamama. Today on the Children's Hour, we're talking about watersheds and wildfires. Joe has our next question.
How do you clean after a forest fire?
Fixing an area of land that's been affected by a fire, we use the word restore, so bringing a degraded landscape back to a healthier state. And I think one of the first steps in doing that is restoring the relationship between humans and land. So one of the things that we do is we work with a lot of community members. These are the people that are on the ground, that are some of the people that have been most impacted by fires. And so we work with people to try and teach them about what just happened on your land. What do we expect to see in the future? And by answering those questions, we start to form a better understanding of how the land is working. And in that way, we have a better idea of how we can help restore it. So restoration is really the act of humans aiding nature to return to that healthy state. And we also do that through educational activities. We work with K through 12 youth, and we teach them about watershed, about forest health. What does a healthy forest look like? What does a healthy forest sound like? If you're walking in the forest, how do you know that whether or not that forest is healthy? So it takes a lot of work to restore a forest or even a watershed after a fire. But I think one of the first components is involving different communities, especially those that are being first impacted.
Are you like planting plants to clean the water? Are you adding sand? I'm trying to understand what can possibly take water that has heavy metals and ash and make it clean enough to even use on irrigation.
There's various methods, and it really depends on the watershed. So one restoration method is replanting, and it's important to consider what types of plants you want to plant post-fire. But replanting is important for helping to hold soil in place so that we're not getting increased erosion when we have rains. Right now, or just this summer, we had our monsoon season in which we had heavy rains, and we saw a lot of the post-fire soils eroding into our water channels. So our rivers, our streams, our creeks, and although erosion is good and it's a natural process, too much of it is bad. And the only thing that holds that soil in place is plants. So bringing plants back is one form of restoration and helping a forest to recover.
What are the main benefits of restoring a forest after a fire?
So one is clean water. A lot of our water originates or starts in a forested landscape. And so if our forests are unhealthy, it's very likely that the water flowing downstream will also be unhealthy. So clean water is one benefit of a healthy forest. Another is activities that we all like to engage in. Some of us like to go camping, hiking, fishing, hunting, and all of those things we can do and really enjoy in a forest that is healthy.
That's Natalie Shaw. She's the Education and Outreach Coordinator for the New Mexico Forest and Watershed Restoration Institute. Coming up after the break, more on forest fires and watersheds. We're broadcasting this during a time when there are a lot of forest fires in the southwestern United States and around North America and the world. We're hoping everyone stays safe.
You're listening to the Children's Hour, Kids Pocket Radio. We'll be right back.
The Children's Hour is produced by the Children's Hour Incorporated. We're a New Mexico-based nonprofit organization supported by listeners just like you. Learn more about us at childrenshour.org. Museum of Indian Arts and Culture and Museum of International Folk Art, divisions of the New Mexico Department of Cultural Affairs, support the Children's Hour. Learn more about both museums at newmexicoculture.org/museums. Electric Playhouse supports the Children's Hour, now open in Las Vegas, Nevada, inside the Forum Shops at Caesars Palace. Learn more at electricplayhouse.com. This is the Children's Hour, and this is the Grateful Dead.
Long distance runner, what you standing there for? Get up, get on, get out of the door. You're playing cold music on the barroom floor. Drown in your laughter and dead to the core. There's a dragon with matches that's loose on the town. Take a whole pail of water just to cool him down. Well, fire, fire on the mountain. 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 Almost a place, still you don't feel the heat. It takes all you got just to stay on the beat. You say it's a living, we all gotta eat. But you're here alone, there's no one to compete. If mercy's in business, I wish it for you. More than just ashes when your dreams come true. Fire, fire on the mountain. 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 Long distance runner, what you holding out for? Caught in slow motion in a dash to the door. The flame from your stage has now spread to the floor. You gave all you had, why you wanna give more? The more that you give, the more it will take. You're the thin line beyond which you really can't fake. Yeah. Fire, fire on the mountain. Fire, fire on the mountain. Fire, fire on the mountain.
You're listening to the Children's Hour, and today on the show, we're learning about watersheds. And part of watersheds that's very important is the forests that they originate in. Well, let's find out from our friends at the New Mexico Forest and Watershed Restoration Institute, what does a healthy forest look like? How do we know we're in a healthy forest?
Yeah, I'm going to say this again, but it depends on the forest type. For example, here in New Mexico, we see a lot of ponderosa pine forests. Historically, when we look at images of ponderosa pine forests, say from 100 plus years ago, we notice that trees are a lot more spread apart. We find a diversity of age in trees, and we find trees that have a larger diameter or width. One way to tell whether a forest is healthy is by looking at the trees and looking at whether or not the trees themselves are healthy. And so a healthy tree will be a good indicator of a healthy forest. In an unhealthy forest, you may find trees that are a lot more closer together, that are very dense, something that we call a dog hair thicket, because it's almost like dog hair where it's so thick, it's almost hard to kind of pass through. But those trees, if we look at them, we'll notice that they're very thin, and it's almost like they've been deprived of a lot of the nutrients that they need in order to grow.
You mean their trunks are skinny?
Yes, exactly. So we'll see skinnier trees, and we'll look across a forest landscape, and we'll notice a lot of times that we're finding trees that are around the same age as well. And what happens is when you have a forest that's very dense with trees, it's easier for disease to spread. So think of being in a classroom where everyone is really close together and then one person coughs. That is going to be a lot easier to spread to other people versus if people are further apart from one another. And so the same goes for trees. Trees need their space, especially ponderosa pines. Another way to tell if a forest is healthy is looking at the wildlife. What type of wildlife are we finding in that forest? What type of plant species are we finding in that forest as well? So we like our forests to be very diverse. We don't want to have just one type of grass or one type of tree, one type of flower. We want different types because it'll attract different types of wildlife as well.
How do animals know when to come back after a forest has healed?
I think when their food comes back, that's when they come back. And so usually if you have a low severity fire and then you have light or good rains afterwards, we'll notice that some plants come back pretty quickly. And that's a good invitation for some wildlife to come back into the forest and take advantage of those fresh green plants.
When a fire does come, okay, I know a lot of people say, hey, it's mean, it's this big nasty thing, but it's really not that nasty. It's doing its job, okay? Fire has a purpose. It's cleaning up this area that needed it. It actually calls for it because some of those trees are sick. They're competing for nutrients, they're competing for food, and when fire comes, it makes this gateway of this entrance of space. So when they have this space, animals love going in there. They feel like it's like the best way because why? They get to be in a place where they could eat good, where they could, have a little bit of privacy, because animals like to be together. So when they come in, they do a selective browsing. And when I'm talking about when trees do fall, okay, when there's a tree that's down on the ground, or even if by fire it just fell down, they'll go around that. And that green up's coming in thicker on one area, so that leaves patchiness. And that's what you want. Because just by that selective eating or selective grazing or selective browsing, you have these patches inside an environment where it was like, oh, hey, we're getting up some of these grasses that we really need, and that area is getting it, even though, the animals missed it. But yes, it's really nutritional. They love it.
That's Raymundo Melendez. We are learning about watersheds today from the New Mexico Forest and Watershed Restoration Institute. This is the Albuquerque band, Wagogo.
There's beauty all around me.
Right here on the Children's Hour.
There's beauty all around me. There's beauty all around me. Hello, beautiful. Hello, 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 hello. Hello, beautiful, 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 beautiful. You are beautiful, just like the rainbows made from living water. So beautiful,
us out of water. The very air we breathe, live in water like the rainbows in the sky. We're beautiful, beautiful. There's beauty all around me. 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 Thank you, beautiful, forever chanting with a drum, singing prayers for the health of the land, so that all things might live, and with beauty all around. May the moss upon the misty mountains drip with living water. May the blanket of green spread across the earth, which is our mother, with her pollen and her flowers and her colors of the summertime. When the winters come, there'll be frost flowers growing on the mountain. May the blanket of ice unfold, cover up the country. May the trees lean to one side, heavy with the snow. May the flesh of Mother Earth crack open from the coldy cold. So in the springtime, there'll be fresh and living waters in the rivers and the streams flowing out into the valleys. And yonder in our watered fields, the sources of our flesh, all the different crops standing in the earth, arms stretched out to the daylight of the sun who is our Father, calling for the rain, singing, come from where you dwell, little wind-blown cloud, thin wisps of cloud, streaks of low-hanging cloud, massed up clouds full of living water, caress the land with rain, bless this land with rain, rainbow. Salom hoşgele, konnichiwa kire, waliki kusa, moroichi bebe, yate ajonea, hola hermosa, hello beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. There's beauty all around me, there's beauty all around me. There's beauty all around me. There's beauty all around me. I love you, beautiful.
Sweet water rolling, sweet water roll, rolling from the fountain, sweet water roll. Sweet water rolling, sweet water roll, rolling from the fountain, sweet water roll.
That's Peggy Seeger right here on the Children's Hour. Today on the show, we are learning about watersheds and what happens after wildfires. Our guests are from the New Mexico Forest and Watershed Restoration Institute.
How does climate change affect the work you do?
There's a lot of work to be done because fires are becoming, I call it bigger and badder. That's not really a scientific term, but the formal term is uncharacteristic wildfire. So we're seeing fire in places that have never had it before, like in Arctic ecosystems, and the fires that we're having in places like New Mexico forests where fire should be a common occurrence, the fires are burning at higher severity and having more impacts where they're killing more trees and generally covering more ground.
Yeah, and for a lot of organizations that are engaging in this restoration work, they have to do a lot of planning before they step on the ground and they start their restoration work. And climate change is adding a lot of unknowns and a lot of questions when it comes to planning. And so a lot of times when planning, you have to think about what are the weather conditions going to be like on a particular day. And you may plan ahead for that, but once you go out into the field and you step into the forest that day, the conditions could be completely different. And so we're dealing with a lot of unknowns. It's also making it so that us humans are having to collaborate more with each other and to learn from one another and share information so that we're better able to adapt to these changing conditions.
Here in the forests of the Mountain West, we have ponderosa pines. They're beautiful. If you put your nose up against the bark of a ponderosa pine, it smells like butterscotch. But now that climate change is going to make, say, this area in New Mexico and in the Southwest so much warmer, and maybe now it's not such a hospitable place anymore for ponderosa pines, does that mean our forests are going to look totally, completely different after forest fire?
Yes. One of the things that's happening around the world is that fire, particularly high severity fire, forests are being replaced with shrublands because the conditions that existed when those trees first established no longer exist. That's one of the biggest problems. Even fire aside, one of the schools of thought is that we should be trying to help put forests where they're going to be better adapted. So that's called assisted migration.
You mean like replant a whole forest somewhere else because it's a better place for that forest?
Some of it might be like following a fire in a place that was ponderosa pine, let's say on a south-facing slope that's somewhat dry. Should we replant ponderosa pine or should we replant pinon and juniper that might do better on that site? Particularly once the trees are gone in this environment, it becomes hotter and drier because you get so much more evaporation once you don't have that tree canopy to shade stuff anymore. So things like white bark pine that grow at high elevation are falling off the top of the mountain essentially because there's nowhere else for them to go, that it's just getting totally inhospitable in their environment.
That's Dr. Krista Bonfantine from the New Mexico Watershed and Forest Restoration Institute. They're our guests today on the Children's Hour as we're learning about watersheds and what happens to our watersheds after a forest fire. All of us have watersheds in our own yards and everywhere we go, and there's a lot we can do to protect them. We've got a lot more to learn. Stick with us.
You're listening to the Children's Hour, Kids Public Radio. We'll be right back.
Thanks to the Outpost Performance Space in Albuquerque, New Mexico for hosting the Children's Hour. Support for the Children's Hour is provided by United Way of North Central New Mexico. Support provided by the City of Albuquerque and the Urban Enhancement Trust Fund. Support for the Children's Hour provided by the County of Bernalillo, New Mexico. Many thanks to the users at tokenibis.org who direct funds to the Children's Hour every week. Keep up with the Children's Hour and subscribe to our monthly newsletter at childrenshour.org.
It's a great big world. Little drop of water. A great big world. Little drop of water. A great big world. Little drop of water. A little drop of water's got a long way to go. It bursts from a cloud. It plops on the ground. Squishes in the mud until the sun goes down. Gives a drink to the grass. Covers it with dew. Dries back up into the sky so blue. It's a great big world. Little drop of water. A great big world. Little drop of water. A great big world. Little drop of water. A little drop of water's got a long way to go. Surfing on a wave, swimming and a wishing. Jump into the bucket of a boy going fishing. Poured in a puddle, running down the drain. Back into the ocean from which it came. It's a great big world. Little drop of water. A great big world. Little drop of water. A great big world. Little drop of water. A little drop of water's got a long way to go. It's slobber on a puppy. It's ice and snow. Spit in Peter Piper's piccolo. A bath for a tiger. A penguin's backyard. Little drop of water got to go so far. It's a great big world. Little drop of water. A great big world. Little drop of water. A great big world. Little drop of water. A little drop of water's got a long way to go. It's a great big world. Little drop of water. A great big world. Little drop of water. A great big world. Little drop of water. A little drop of water's got a long way to go. Little drop of water. Great big
Little Drop of Water is Beth Nielsen Chapman with our friends at Kid Ban Alley. This is the Children's Hour. I'm Katie Stone. We have just a few more minutes with our guests from the New Mexico Forest and Watershed Restoration Institute.
What can we and some of the listeners at home do to help after a forest fire has happened?
There's a lot you can do to help before a forest fire happens in terms of helping maintain healthy watersheds. After a fire, something that I like to do is spread native seeds so the plants that are there that are producing seeds. Like last month when I was looking around in the forest, if something had seeds that were ready, I just kind of spread them around. I didn't bring seeds with me from somewhere else, but I just took seeds that were around the burned area and spread them around.
What can people do to protect the watersheds around them?
This is a hard thing to say in New Mexico right now, but one of the best things in the western U.S. is to support prescribed fire, because sometimes we think the places that we hike, we don't want to see those places burned, but we actually need fire in Ponderosa. Ponderosa likes to have fire every 10 years, give or take. And so in the Grand Canyon, they've actually added their fire management. They've been very active in how they manage fires so that people can still come and enjoy the Grand Canyon, but they might be having a burn while people are there. And so being flexible and supportive about those things, because they need to happen. And I really hope that we'll have more opportunities that people will be able to see and learn about prescribed fire.
What could kids do when they're in the woods?
Even as simple as staying on the trails that exist there, that helps with preventing further erosion from happening, which adds to further deposition into stream channels, which then contributes to degraded water quality. But even something as simple as staying on the trails, picking up after yourselves, there's a saying that goes, leave no trace. So when you're in the forest, you want to leave it better or as it was when you came.
I was just thinking, since I was a kid, I remember there was a good conservation cartoon of Woodsy Owl, and he'd always say, give a hoot, don't pollute. Even as a kid, just picking up trash, leaving an area the way it was when you got there, respect it. Because, even the grass you step on, that's living. The trees you're seeing, it's living. And I know a lot of people don't say they don't have a voice, but they actually do. And I want to share something with you all today. Trees do talk, all right? They talk by pheromones, and pheromones is a scent. Think of it as a cologne or perfume, or like if you have this nice soap, think of it as that. They have a nice smell. So yes, they can't move, but they do speak, and they do brush up against each other with their branches. So I'd say just have a lot of respect for it, because it's providing for you.
Do no harm in the forest. Thank you so much. That's Raymundo Melendez and Natalia Shaw. They're from the New Mexico Forest and Watershed Restoration Institute. And thanks for being with us on the show.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Krista Bonfantine, an ecologist, for also being with us today.
Thank you.
When the world's moving fast and I'd rather move slow, when my mind's spinning circles, there's one place I know I can sit there and ponder the things that I've learned. I can dream of tomorrow as I watch your water turn, while I rest on your banks, look around and give thanks for my life. Well, the birds are here singing, the trout are all leaping so high, yeah. At the river by and by, at the river feeling just right. At the river, it's my place to go. At the river, feeling your flow. When I've been playing so hard, dirt and sweat on my skin, and my body is tired, I want to feel fresh again. I remember the words of an old country hymn. Shall we gather at the river, swaying and jumping, till I'm laughing and splashing and shivering, joy and delight, and see the world's beauty with fresh eyes, dancing with light. At the river by and by, at the the river, feeling your flow, yeah. At the river, by and by. At the river, feeling just right. At the river, it's my place to go. At the river, feeling your flow, yeah.
That was The River by Aaron Nigel Smith and the band Red Yarn off of their CD, Smith and Yarn. You're hearing Water Drums. It's a recording of the Baka Forest people of Cameroon. Water can even be an instrument. Today I learned our watersheds need our forests to stay clean, and our forests need our wildfires to stay healthy and feed our wildlife. It's amazing how everything in our natural world is so connected. We think of fire and water as opposites, and yet our watersheds rely upon wildfires in order to thrive. And here's something else that's pretty cool. Every drop of water in every watershed around the globe has been on planet Earth since before the dinosaurs. Let's commit to protecting our watersheds.
Plants and trees, roots and leaves need sweet water. Birds and bees and chimpanzees need sweet water. Sweet water, sweet water, sweet water, sweet water. Grab a cup, drink it up, oh sweet water. Jump in the tub, scrub a dab, oh sweet water. Sweet water, sweet water, sweet water, sweet water. Love the water like a mother. Love the water like a father. Rain coming down, giving the ground, oh sweet water. Jump in the puddle, blowing bubbles, oh sweet water. Sweet water, sweet water,
Mother,
sweet water.
Mother needs
sweet water,
Mother,
sweet water,
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 Mother needs.
That's Siama from the land of the Yangalele right here on the Children's Hour. You can learn a lot more about watersheds. Visit childrenshour.org. Look for this episode, Watersheds. And we've got time for one more. We're going to go out with the Whiz Pops. This is Watershed. Thanks for listening to the Children's Hour. We'll catch you next time.
From the mountains high to the valley below, rushing down as a stream or creek. These two types of tributaries will flow to the river eventually. Water drops, water flows, water don't stop, even when it throws. That's what I say. We all live in a watershed. Rivers meet up with ponds and lakes to make bigger rivers that will take all the fresh water to the sea. While all that water moves around, some percolates into the ground and becomes drinking water for you and me. Water drops, water flows, water don't stop, no, even when it throws. That's what I said. We all live in a watershed.
The Children's Hour is produced by the Children's Hour Incorporated, a New Mexico nonprofit.
You can find photos, links, learn-along guides, and more about us at childrenshour.org.
Today's show was written and produced by me, Katie Stone, with help from Christina Stella, and Chad Shear was our live engineer at Outpost. Many thanks to our guests from New Mexico Watershed and Forest Restoration Institute.
Find our podcast wherever you listen to podcasts, or go to our patreon.com/The Children's Hour.
Or ask your smart speaker to play the Children's Hour podcast.
We post our photos and more on Instagram and Facebook. Find us at TCH Radio.
Our theme music was written by C.K. Barlow.
The Children's Hour is distributed by Native Voice One, the Native American Radio Network.
Thanks for listening to the Children's Hour, Kids Public Radio.